Today on Summon Your Superhuman, I bring you a superhuman all the way from Perth. Some of you may be familiar with her. Her name is Tracey Lee Cook, TLC. Tracey is every reason to not be a success. Living a lifetime of overcoming self-limiting beliefs, from a survivor of sexual abuse, domestic violence, a cancer survivor, homelessness, and addiction, Tracey is now a powerful online radio announcer to whom I've spoken on, #1 health and wellness radio show in the country. She's an entrepreneur, she's a coach, she's a speaker, she's an author. Her passion has a growing community following her journey from victim to victory, which is a podcast I've also spoken on. It's fantastic. It's also a Facebook group. Now, Tracey Cook is a high energy woman. When I intro her in a second and you get to hear her, she's just alive and vibrant. She's unique and engaging, and she tells stories to inspire and create transformations. She gives the audience the direction to transformation, to find their purpose, step into their story using storytelling. And she's strategic. She's just all about speaking and creating that brand around the story. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tracey.
Thank you so much, Ria. I'm really excited to share with everybody today, and I'm so honored to be a guest on your podcast because what you're doing is absolutely amazing and changing the community as well. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
Oh, thank you, Tracey. You're so kind to me. Now let's touch upon something that is in your, you speak about how you're every reason to not be a success. What makes you say that?
Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, the reason why I say that to people is there's a bit of a backstory about it. Many, many years ago, back in high school, we were at an assembly and there was a lady on stage in a wheelchair. She was paraplegic and she wheeled herself out onto the stage, and we all sat there and we weren't knowing what to expect. We didn't know back when I was in high school that this was a motivational speech as they are today. And she wheeled out onto the stage and they dropped the mic for her and she led with, "I am every reason not to be a success." And of course, you immediately get everybody's attention because the first thing you visibly see is the paraplegic in a wheelchair on a stage with a microphone. And you're trying to find some relatability straight away. Even as a teenager, I thought, how can I relate to this? What has that got to do with me? What do you mean a success? You're in a wheelchair, and it wasn't motivational or inspirational as we see it now, Ria. And as she progressed through her speech, it was everything that she had endured through her childhood, the bullying, the medical surgeries, the complications, the self-loathing, the wanting to commit suicide, the whole journey through her anxiety and her depression. And at the end, I don't know how long, she had me captivated. My eyes were wide, my mouth was open. Everyone else was chattering around me. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. And I was just encapsulated with this woman's story who started out with, "I am every reason not to be a success."
Wow.
And it just gave me goosebumps. I have goosebumps now just thinking about this woman. I can't remember her name. I don't know where to find her. And I don't know what she is actually doing. But it was how she was helping others to actually adapt to physical disabilities. Now, we're talking back in the 80s, like the early 80s, when I actually heard this woman speak. There was no motivation, Ria.
No.
There was no inspiration. We're in Belmont Primary, a low-income suburb in Perth, and where most of the housing is state housing. We didn't have incomes. We didn't have parents that aspired us to be anything apart from a hairdresser or working at Kmart, quite literally. There was no aspirations of what you were going to do when you leave school. There was no talk of being doctors or nurses, or it was just go and get a job so you've got somewhere to live. And this lady showed hope to everybody. And I walked around in a daze for weeks and weeks just thinking about this. Now, at this time, Ria, nobody knew when I was a teenager that I'd suffered years of sexual abuse from a family friend's son. And I held it in, and it was a secret. And I never, ever told anybody. And I didn't like myself. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And I didn't like the way that I felt like I couldn't tell anybody. And I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was the only one this was happening to. I didn't know how to talk to my friends and say, hey, is this happening to you as well? Because it's wrong, but you don't know that if you tell somebody that you're not going to get into trouble. So as I actually heard this woman speaking, I was relating it to moments that I'd had in my life with low self-worth and depression and fear and anxiety. And as she progressed to the end of her story, I could feel that, that fire in your belly, that I can actually be more. And you can say it so many different ways to yourself, Ria. It's like, I can actually be more, like a question. It's like, I can actually be more. And I was going through all these things, walking around in a daze for weeks, thinking I could be more. Now, during my childhood as well, my parents didn't know about the family friend's son through the abuse. And my father was an alcoholic. My mother, not until recent years, has disabilities, and it really put a burden on our family and my place in the family. I never ever felt like I was supported or welcomed or be able to be me. And this is something that I think a lot of people, and hopefully your audience, Ria, will relate to, because we all just want to be our true, authentic selves. We just want to be embraced for who we are and people to meet us where we're actually at, physically, mentally, emotionally, and we just want support. We just want someone to see us. We just want to be seen. We want to feel worthy, and we want to feel appreciated. I never had any of that growing up. There was always criticism. You'll never amount to anything. You're useless. What did you do that for? I was never, ever, ever good enough. And even as I speak to you today, it's evoking those emotions. I can feel those emotions. No matter how many times I speak about it, it's still I'll go through 10 emotions speaking about it.
Yeah.
But we have to. We have to tell our stories, because it's not generational anymore to keep within our four walls, to not tell anybody. What will the neighbours think? Don't you tell anybody what's going on in our house. That's our business.
Yeah.
And breaking those generational chains and breaking the reasons that stop us from stepping into our highest power. And that's what I love about your podcast, to be superhuman, to evoke those emotions, that fire in your belly, to transform into the best human that you possibly can. And it all starts with us accepting our stories, paying gratitude to it, and saying, this is where I was. This is where I pivoted and knew that I could be more. And this is what I'm doing now. And it doesn't have to be selfless or self-serving. because we all know that when we come from a place of gratitude, even for the most victimization and traumatized experiences that we have ever felt, or even if we haven't felt, there's always a story. Everyone has got a story. It might be a limiting belief. It might be self-worth. It could be anything. But a lot of people don't get it straight away, and that's okay. That we have to embrace our story and actually wear it like a superhero cape and not an anchor. Because your story, no matter how bad it is, it was given to you as a gift. It was given to you as a reason. Now, is that reason always obvious? Hell no. Never. It's never obvious.
No.
But when you're going through those processes of telling your story, inspiring others, connecting with others, being relatable so they don't feel alone and you're meeting them where they're at, that's powerful. That is such a powerful place to be, because just to tell your story where one person is sitting there or listening and they kind of think, well, you know what? I actually could be better and maybe I'll start making some changes. And that's where the process begins. And for me, it began all with a lady wheeling herself out in a wheelchair on a high school stage. And I was the only one that was wide-eyed and open-mouthed in the audience, the only one out of 200 or 300 people that got it. And you just might be that one that is wide-eyed and open-mouthed and just get it. And you may need to hear the message 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times. And then that one day, you'll get it. And that's where the process starts, Rhea. That's where it exactly starts.
Wow.
Now, if I may, with your permission,
Sure.
this is the beginning of the story, and I won't keep you too long. But growing up with those self-limiting beliefs, I was a teenage runaway. I was drinking at 12, 13, 14 years of age, and I mean drinking. I was hanging out with the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
I was in trouble with the police. I was a badass. Well, I thought I was. I thought I was super cool badass. I'd go into the city, I'd hang around with the street kids pretending I was a street kid, although I had a home to sleep in. And I was trying to pretend and be all at the same time something that I knew I wasn't. But because I was told I was that thing, because I was told that this is the box you belong in, I tried to belong in there and it never felt right. So what that done, it attracted all these abusive men, abusive relationships, domestic violence relationships, even to the point where I actually thought I deserved it. And I would say, sorry, I deserve that. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Like, how do you go from having a fire in your belly, thinking you can be more, to 10, 15 years later, you look back at your life and there's so many gaps. There's so many holes that you've dug and fell into, and you're digging the same holes and you're pulling yourself out, but you've been told, you've been programmed, this is the box you belong in. You're nothing. You're useless. What did you think that for? Well, that's not going to happen. That's ridiculous. You're delusional. You're never going to amount to anything. So you think, okay, so I need to go hang out with the street kids and really bad people and get into abusive relationships because that's what I deserve. And then there's this other little inner critic that sits there and goes, you can do better. And you ignore it and you ignore it and you ignore it. And then you hear that message, like I said. One day you hear that message, or you remember the message you heard and you go, you know what? Enough. Enough. This is not going to define me. This is not going to be my life anymore. If things don't change, Rhea, things don't freaking change. They
Amen.
don't.
That's right.
So I was 8 months pregnant. I was laying on a hospital bed and I was black and blue all over, scratches. I get emotional still talking about this and I was black and blue all over.
Wow.
I'd been hit with a baseball bat very severely. I could hardly see out of one eye, but I could see the doctors walking around, nurses talking. My stomach, I looked down and it was just covered in bruises. And I felt like I had an out of the body experience. And I was actually looking down at myself on the table and I could hear all these sounds. It was like I was in slow motion. And I remember thinking to myself very vividly, very, very vividly, and this is what changed everything. This will not define me. I'm going to lose my baby and I'm to blame because I didn't change what I needed to change so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. They called in the priest. They were telling me I'm going to lose the baby. And I couldn't even cry. I couldn't even cry because I just loathed myself so much at that point that I'd let it get to this point that I physically, emotionally, and mentally listened to that programming as a child to think that I was worthy and that I deserve this. So in that moment, I swore. I'm not a religious person, but I'm spiritual. And I prayed to whoever was listening, whoever, if you let my baby live, I will be better. I will change and I will help others. And I just kept saying that to myself over and over and over. And they done some tests. They came back and they went, Tracey, your baby's fine. And they whispered it like it wasn't meant to be true.
Okay.
That's the first thing that stood out to me. I'm like, why are you whispering this to me? They went, we really didn't expect your baby to live. I said, well, I did. And I remember shouting it so loud. And they kind of gasped back.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to speak to a social worker and I need some help to get out of a domestic violence relationship.
Wow.
And they were like, oh, you said you fell downstairs. Yes, I lied. And in that moment, I found superhuman strength in my words, in my courage. I've always been confident, but I never had courage. I had this courage. And it hasn't gone away, by the way.
Thank goodness for that.
I had this courage. I knew my direction. Now, we all wait for that prognosis or that diagnosis or that defining moment to change things. My biggest message is that change things before they actually need changing. If you can actually see that you are in a situation that is not healthy, supportive, empowering, or inspiring to you and supporting you and your needs, you need to change. You need to pivot. You need to get out. You need to find another way. Sometimes it doesn't have to come. Well, it doesn't have to come to the point where you've got what nurses whispering to you whether you're going to lose your baby or not. And in that moment, I found the courage. And out of that courage, I left. And within 2 years, I was so laser focused as a single mother. I'd bought a house, I'd bought a car, and my daughter was at full-time daycare and full-time vacation care and things like that. She survived. She's beautiful. she's given our family 3 grandbabies, which I'm very blessed and grateful for. 3 of our 9
Wow.
with our other children.
Mhm.
And out of that blessing, I had achieved so much. I went back to night school and I was learning. I got a full-time job and I had my own business and I bought my house and I bought a car and I was able to pay for things for my daughter that I never even thought that I would be able to do. And in that 2 years, there was so much focus and growth and transformation and always getting back to having self-worth. Now, this is before, this was 26, 27 years ago.
Mhm.
This is even before we really were talking about self-worth,
Mhm.
self-issues,
Yep.
being appreciated. Was way before it was really a big thing. But there was a book by Louise Hay. It's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I have it still now. It is highlighted. It's got notes scribbled in it. It's got ratted edges. It's got the spine on the book that's been flipped over so many times. And how powerful is that saying from Louise Hay? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Because
Mhm.
if we don't get out of our comfort zone and if we don't change what's not serving us, serving our families, how are we supposed to leave a legacy? How are we supposed to break generational curses and generational chains that keep us down from not being able to step into the best versions of ourselves, that we can't actually fulfill that fire in our belly? And Les Brown said, the graveyards are the most expensive real estate on earth because that's where our dreams go to die.
Yep.
We don't want to die with that music inside of us, Ria. We want to be able to live our most fullest life. And if we're going to have those little inner critics on our shoulders that is going to say, no, you can't do that. You're useless. You're worthless. You're delusional. You'll never amount to anything. If you're going to keep that close to your ear, that's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve your children. It's not going to serve your partners. And it's not going to serve your community. Because what we invest into the community with mental health, with domestic violence, with suicide education and awareness, and a plethora of so many other things, it all starts with you and what you're going to do about your situation to really draw on your superhero experience to be a superhuman.
Wow. I want to applaud. Whether you're watching or listening, I think that it's very clear why Tracy is on the show. And you may or may not see the superwoman with the lightning bolt on her chest and standing fiercely in power pose with the cape flapping in the breeze. And honestly, that's you, Tracy. Like, your story just then, I mean, even if we ended the podcast right here, it's the amount of value you just shared with us. Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing yourself to, get vulnerable and share your story, because it's not an easy thing to, one, go through, and to two, accept, deal with, embrace, and then share it with others. And that's why I guess you and I get along so well. It's because we've gone through things, and we could sit in the corner and be like, oh, poor me, and I've gone through this and I'm such a victim, and but we want to share our story, and so it is heard, so to give people the strength to find their strength to be their best self. And I love that you had that voice, that woman, just her words even though they became stagnant for a certain time, because there was a journey you had to go through. There was so much outside noise and outside negativity that was flowing your way, that it just drowned this beautiful woman's voice that was telling you that you could be more. But thank goodness that that voice came loud and proud when you really needed it the most. Oh,
Thank you
what a
so much.
oh, it's
Thank you.
beautiful.
That's absolutely lovely. And I love connecting with other people that are on a very similar path like you, Ria, because we all need to be the change, especially off the end of 2020.
Mm,
Things are changing, and we need to think of our fellow humans, talk humans, and give people a helping hand up and not a push down, because you can hit every single branch on that tree on the way down. Addiction, sexual abuse, homelessness, single parent, domestic violence. Plus, I had cancer in recent years, mesh complication surgery.
mm,
You never compare your story, because our stories are true to us. They're
yeah.
our truth. We
Mhm.
speak our truth. We step into our stories. But at some time, we do have to take a step back to step forward and get perspective, not
Mhm.
comparison, two totally different things that a lot of people do confuse.
Yes.
To get perspective,
Mhm.
because sometimes what you think you're going through is hard for you, and it is. But if you just step back to get a bigger perspective, it's amazing where your mindset can actually start shifting. So you can start that transformation of change to redirect you to go on to be a better version. And we hear this all the time, right? We hear
Mhm.
this, be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And what does it actually mean? Like, when somebody first said that to me, I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? That means that you're happy to be authentic. That's what it means to me. I'm not sure what it means to you, Ria, but the best version of yourself is just to be happy to be your own authentic self, and really not care what anyone else thinks of you, because nobody else's opinion determines your reality.
Mhm. Exactly.
Doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention to what people say or think. We do,
Yeah.
but how is it impacting you? Because it doesn't. It doesn't. People's words don't, of putting you down, people's words of saying you're this, you're that, that doesn't determine your reality. Your
Mhm.
reality is what you think. So we need to be accountable for what we think. We don't need to rely on others to make us happy, and nobody's here to save you. Like, nobody's gonna, the knight, in shining armor on the white horse,
Yeah.
he ain't coming. And that hurts, right? That, oh, ouch.
You gotta be the
He isn't
superhero of
coming.
you're the superhero of your own story, basically. That's the best thing. Don't look for someone to come right up on a horse and save you. Save yourself. Be your own
Mhm.
superhero. And then I guess that's the whole thing. You spoke about something that I tell a lot of people, that it doesn't matter if they're my client or whether they're just someone that I know, and I hear that negative self-talk, or that the way that they speak about themselves in such a mm, I don't want I want to say condescending, but just they don't speak to themselves like they would speak about or to other people.
Mhm.
And so I kind of bring that to their attention. And I think that's important, because sometimes, most of the time, people don't realize that they do that. They'll speak about it. Oh, I'm such a retard. Oh, look at me. I'm so pathetic. And I'll pause and I'll be like, hang on, do you always speak to yourself like that? Like, is that something that you would say to me if you saw me drop something like that seemingly was retarded or whatever, like I was clumsy? Would you call me, would you say that? No, no way. And I said, why do you speak to yourself like that? I said, do you realize that you hear you? Like, you
Mhm.
really hear you. And not only do you hear you, you feel those words like in every part of your being, that you
We get
believe
to
it.
keep we get to keep what we speak.
Yeah.
We get to keep what we speak. I was at the hairdressers last weekend, if I could just share a
Mm.
moment, and I'm so glad you brought that up because we so get to keep what we speak. My hairdresser mentioned the breaking down at the corner shop. She mentioned about how so and so is sick all the time, and I have to go and drop some food off to her again. And
Mm.
she mentioned all this negative stuff. And by the time I had my hair done, I felt so drained,
Oh.
and I let her vent because
Mm.
obviously she needed to vent. And at the end, I said to her, "What's something good that happened this week for you?" And she looked at me in shock. And she realized in that moment that she'd just been verbally vomiting all this negativity.
Mhm.
And she went, "Oh, I said, wouldn't it just be great if we could think of positive things quicker than we can think of negative things? Have a fantastic day." I gave her a $50 tip, and she went, and hopefully that ripple effect will change the rest of her clients for the day.
Yeah.
But just to be able to pick your friends up on that language as well,
Mhm.
because language, what we speak, we keep. And the feelings that are attached to those words, Ria, like you mentioned, they internalize in our conscious and our subconscious,
Mhm.
and delivers a message to the universe. So the universe will give us more of that.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
no good at this. Oh, okay. The universe is, yep, I've got your order here. Yes, we need to give her more of that.
Yeah. More stuff to complain about.
We
And
need to give people something more to complain about.
mhm.
But
Mhm.
isn't it great that we can embrace our stories? Isn't it great that, and it takes a lot of self-development, and by all means, I still have times where the inner critic will come and sit on my shoulder for a while, and
Mhm.
and I'll be trying to self-sabotage, but I've got awareness now, right, when I'm doing it. So you pick yourself up because
Mhm.
it never stops happening.
Mhm.
You still have to keep picking yourself up on it.
Yes.
But isn't it great that we can do this personal development and we can switch our old programming from traumas or victimizations or any events that have happened in our lives, and we can externalize that. We can do self development, and we can actually embrace our stories to share for more connections, more relatability, for our businesses, for our personal lives, for
Mhm.
connection,
Yeah.
to help others. I think it's a magical place to be, Ria.
I couldn't agree more. I 100% agree with you, because that's a realization that I've come to as well. You know, women like you and I, humans like you and I, have gone through what we've gone through so that we can better empathize with people on their journeys, and be the shepherd to their superhuman story. You know, that's why we've gone through all of the stuff we've gone through, not because we deserve it, not because, you know, we were being punished or something like that. We were being strengthened. We were being shown how to overcome all of these ridicules and all of these hardships, so that we can shepherd and lead others to their greener pastures. And yeah, is exactly why we've gone through it, and it's making peace with that. I think that's been really powerful for me, and it sounds, obviously, of course, it has been that way for you. And I just want to highlight really quickly that, um, you know, it's what you said before is something I think is very important to say, and that's, it is not just a one-time thing to establish and make peace. It is, and that's why I want to set the reality that it is something that is ongoing, and it is something that you need to view more as a blessing, to reflect and accept, and then continue to grow, because we will find ourselves in those old programming, because if we've gone through it for 10, 20, 30 years, and then we think all of a sudden we've done some work and the light bulb's gone off and we're like, we're healed. And
Definitely.
it doesn't quite work that way. The programming is still there in the background. So there's still rewiring and things that need to go. But it does help you identify when those things come back, when those behaviors and language and things come back. It does give you that opportunity to shine the light on it and be like, hey, I know you, but you're no longer welcome here, or you're no longer necessary. I'm on a different path now. But thank you so much for the lessons that you've taught me, and now I can better serve and help other people.
Definitely, 100%, Rhea, 100%. And I just really encourage people to tap into their superhuman, and what you're doing with your podcast to spread that message is vital for the communities at the moment.
Oh, thank you, Tracey. We are, honestly, everything that you've shared today, I know in my heart that someone will hear what you've said and they'll be able to start the journey to where they need to be. Something will click, the little light bulb will go on, and then that'll be like the little Tracey who heard those words and was inspired to make a difference. So
thank you so much.
Now, you don't get away from not answering the question I ask everyone, even though you really have gone above and beyond it already. But I do have to ask you, what does summon your superhuman mean to you?
It means to dare greatly, to step into the arena, figure out who you are, and do it on purpose.
Nice. Drop the mic.
Drop the mic. Mic drop.
Throw it. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Tracey. And, Tracey and I have been speaking about doing, collaborations on Clubhouse, and we really want to connect and combine our passion for sharing our stories and making a difference and an impact in this world, and rising together and helping as many people as we can. So this is not going to be the last time you hear of Tracey. And if you haven't already watched or listened to the radio interview and the podcast interviews I've done with Tracey previously, have a listen and just soak in all of the Tracey goodness. She is she is everywhere.
You're making me blush, Rhea.
She's everywhere you can find her. She's been lighting up TikTok now. So Tracey Lee Cook, TLC, go get yours. And I look forward to just bringing more amazingness to this world with you.
Thank you so much, Rhea. I'm very, very grateful to be a guest on your podcast, and your journey is amazing. So we're all going to see more of Rhea as well, 100%. Thank you so much. You're a super.